Hey folks, welcome back to another video. You join me in the snow. I'm in Spain and it's snowing. Not just snowing, it's snowing actually like quite a lot. It's like proper wintry. It was forecast to rain here, which we don't get a lot of rain here, we get the occasional bit. But the rest of Spain was due snow, and it turns out that we got the snow as well. It's pretty stunning, to be fair though. I've been coming here, I think this is my 5th year coming here. I've never seen snow here before, so actually it's quite a novelty really. Still coming out to the video because it is a rest day, because we sort of planned the rest days to coincide with the bad weather. And so today's video, it's one, there's not many videos on this really in the whole scheme of things. There's lots of videos about how to belay your second up, whether that's in guide mode, regular belaying, whatever. But I had a couple of people suggest doing a video on like multi-pitch belaying the leader. So when you're part way up the route, how do you sort of change from belaying them as a second through to belaying them as they lead through, that kind of thing. So I thought I'd come along to hopefully a sheltered bit of crag out of the snow, find a couple of anchors, different spot to where I was the other day, and run through that. So you'll join me there in a second hopefully. Right, I found a nice bit of crag to hide under. There's a massive overhang above me, sheltering me from the snow and inclement weather. It's stunning over there, over the trees though, all white on top. You might see the boy wandering around every now and then, digging holes as he does. Today's video, as I said in the little intro, is all about belaying the leader, something we haven't really talked a massive amount about before. Mostly it's all about bringing up seconds in guide mode and all that stuff, isn't it? First off though, let's put myself, having climbed up the first pitch, built a belay on trad gear at the moment, that's important to start with. I've equalised stuff with a sling, pretty standard stuff, not really a video about that side of things. Clip myself in with the clove hitch, do it up, jobs are good and shat down safe, we're ready to go. I can take the rope into my mate until it goes tight on them. Next job is going to put them on belay. Now, I've defaulted to an indirect belay, following on from the last video really, on my rope loop. There's other videos about rope loop versus belay loop, done that yonkies ago. Now, I'm on trad gear, I'm from the UK, that's where I learnt to climb, that's where I work most of the year. This is probably our default. I bring them up, they're climbing up to me, on their merry way, having a nice time, great. What do they do when they get to me? Well, they clip into something up here, right? Maybe the shelf, just because it's a bit separate. Pros and cons to all these spots, but just into there. I won't do it, but they clove hitch themselves onto that. At that point, I can let go. We can swap gear over, look at the guidebook, take a photo, have a drink, whatever it's going to be. When they're ready to go, they'll come off that clove hitch. What have I got to do before they take that clove hitch off? I've got to be ready, haven't I? I've got to get hold of the braking strand and all that jazz. Whilst they're on that clove hitch, if there's any twists or tangles going on here, that's the time to sort it out, okay? As soon as they come off that clove hitch, they're on you, you've got to concentrate and you can't take that off or anything, can you? So that's the time. The time when you're more likely to have to do that is if you're on half ropes or double ropes. That's when you can find there's a twist in there from a changeover. Take the opportunity when they're fixed in to sort out that twist and tangle. Most of the time, with a bit of rope management, you won't need to, but if you do, that's the time to do it. But we haven't got to in this case. They've come off their clove hitch, belaying away, great, they're having a nice time. If they climb up past me and they fall off without placing a bit of gear, what happens? They go a long way is what happens. Let's say they've climbed 2 metres up, there'd be 2 metres of rope out, but actually they'd fall 4 metres, wouldn't they? So 4 divided by 2, so factor 2 fall. That's a big one. I like to think of this as my little safety bubble, and I don't want that safety bubble to explode because that's me and my mate reliant upon that. It's also going to be hard and uncomfortable for you to hold. Hopefully you would, but it will be a tricky one. So as soon as they leave that belay, the leader's thoughts should be on, right, let's get a bit of gear in. It might be there's a bit close by. Place a completely separate bit to here, right? Clip it in, jobs are good. And it might be though that they're looking up going, oh, that next bit of gear is a little way off and this bit of climbing is a bit tricky. So I would like to protect this safety bubble. What can we do? They can get a quick draw, put it onto one of those bits of gear, and as they go past, being careful not to back clip it in this demo, they can clip into that. So immediately we've negated that possibility of a factor 2 fall, because they can climb up to the same distance, but they're not going to fall as far because of that bit of gear. I would rather it's completely separate, but if that's not an option, this is a good secondary option, okay, so it's well worth thinking about that. They fall off, great, all goes onto there. I hold on to that. It's not too much drama. They, hopefully pull back on and send the route, all that jazz. That is what I would normally do, okay, when I'm climbing. But what if we belayed in guide mode? That's a pretty common thing to do, isn't it? Let's just strip that back for a moment. Get that out of the way. Not much needs to change with this lot. I can take it off here. Let's pretend this time I've led up again. I've clipped myself in. I put my mate on belay. I'm going to clip this up in guide mode this time. We've got that carabiner there, so I may as well use that. Again, pros and cons to where you put this, but that's for other videos. Belay them up, belay them up. They join me, same as before. What are they going to do at this point? They're going to clove hitch themselves into something, probably, well, it doesn't really matter, does it? But something in here, maybe the master point, just to keep it off that shelf out of the way. They clip in, what can I do? I can let go, do all the gear swapping, all that kind of stuff. Now, realistically, I don't want to be belaying a leader using guide mode. Really, it takes a third hand to do it. You can't really shuffle the slack through at any pace that's useful to a leader. So to give any slack, you kind of have to pull that, don't you? And then, well, you've let go of the braking strand to be able to pull that through. So it's just really, it's a non-starter. So whilst they're in on their clove hitch, as they've joined me, all I do is I take it off there and I put it down onto my harness instead. So I've changed from direct to indirect belay, back to basics really. Get that in. They're good to go, off they go again, separate bit of gear ideally, if needs be, into the safety bubble up there, alright. Reverted back to what we know really, haven't we? Now, there is a case for a time when you might want to belay directly off the anchors, but it's probably not going to be in an ATC guide style thing, it's more likely to be in an Italian hitch. If you belay directly off these anchors, what's going to happen when your mate falls off? The anchors are going to get pulled upwards. That's no good for my trad gear that I've placed here. Not saying that trad gear can't take an upward fall, but these bits can't because they're nuts. They've gone in from the top, so if they get an upward pull, they're just going to fall out, aren't they? Get pulled out and bad things will happen. So what does that mean? Where can we do a direct belay, and where is it quite common to do a direct belay for a leader? It's bolts, right? So put yourself Alps, Dolomites, States, wherever. It could be any country, couldn't it? We just don't get a lot of it in the UK. So in that situation, I'm not going to go into a load of different sling setups because there's ways of doing this, there's a lot of ways of doing it, but let's just for the sake of it put it onto, let's keep it on the shelf for the moment. I could actually, let's just put an HMS on there rather than that mini thing. There we go. Let's pretend these are bolts, remember that, they're bolts, they're bolts, they're bolts, they're bolts, they're not on trad gear anymore. There's not enough bolts at ground level around here to do it though. Clear this out of the way. I've led up the pitch. I've clipped myself in, clove hitch, taking the slack to my mate, they're still down the bottom. Italian hitch or a Munter hitch, get that in there, same thing. Belay them up to me. What do they do when they get to me? They clip themselves into somewhere, be it the master point or the shelf, whatever. Great, clip into there. I can go hands-free for the moment, swap the gear, read the guidebook, all that stuff I've said before. When they come off that clove hitch, right, get that out of the way. I then need to be holding on to that before that happens, don't know the braking strand, and off they go on their merry way. They can clip that bit of gear as we did before, ideally a separate bit of gear, whatever it's going to be, and if they fall off, that's all going to get pulled upwards, which is why that all needs to take an upward pull. Also, what's likely to happen is I'm not actually in the proper braking position for an Italian hitch to get max friction. You will get some slippage. Now that slippage can be looked at as being a good thing because it reduces impact force on the top bits of gear. So it's a bit like giving a soft patch when you jump up to your mate, which is really hard to do multi-pitching, but sport climbing you do it all the time. So there's actually quite a few pros to doing an Italian hitch directly off the anchors, but as I said, they've got to be multi-directional, which means they've almost certainly got to be bolts, that kind of thing. So trad gear, we just don't really do it, okay. You'll see it much more common, like I say, in other countries. Other problems for us in the UK, even if we did come across a bolted belay, chances are on half ropes and managing an Italian with 2 half ropes or having 2 separate Italians and stuff like that just doesn't, it's just not very slick really, so I default to putting it down on here. As I said, I'm not going into other sling setups because there's better sling setups than this method here. I just didn't want to sort of faff changing stuff on the video. If there's interest in that, put it in the comments below and we can do a video on that at some point for sure. So there you go. Belaying the leader indirect or direct. There's a time and a place for both, as always. Please do fire away with questions on it, as you know, I'm happy to answer those as best I can. I just wanted to touch on it rather than go into loads of detail of doing that direct belay. That'd probably be another video realistically. Thanks very much for watching. As always, do click the like button, smash the subscribe button, keep supporting the channel by doing those things. There's the buy me a coffee link to keep us going on that way as well. The Sling Mountain t-shirts, far too cold to show off a t-shirt today. I've got like loads of layers on trying to stay warm. Do find us on Insta, find us on Facebook. All the support for any of these things that you've done, massively appreciated. I say it every time, I shall keep saying it as well. Once again, thanks very much for watching. More videos coming up very soon.